Fury erupts in the Oval Office as a legal bombshell rocks the Trump administration. The date, February 21, 2025. The setting, the Oval Office. Witnesses describe a scene of utter chaos. Former President Trump, his face contorted in rage, unleashes a torrent of fury. The target of his ire? A federal judge who dared to rule against him. The reason? A lawsuit filed by the Associated Press, a case that would have profound implications for the future of American democracy. Trump's tirade, fueled by his trademark blend of ego and grievance, reverberates through the halls of the White House. His aides, accustomed to his volcanic temper, exchange nervous glances. They know this is not just another tantrum, this is personal. The Associated Press, with its long history of holding the powerful accountable, refused to be intimidated. A deep dive into the lawsuit that ignited the firestorm, the Associated Press versus the might of the White House. The lawsuit itself was a direct challenge to the Trump administration's increasingly hostile stance towards the media. Trump, who had made a habit of denouncing any media coverage he disliked as fake news, had taken to barring certain outlets, including the Associated Press, from press briefings and events. The administration's reasoning? These outlets were deemed biased or unfair in their coverage. This, the Associated Press argued, was a blatant violation of the First Amendment, which guarantees freedom of the press. The administration's actions, they contended, were not about ensuring accuracy or fairness. They were about silencing dissent and controlling the narrative. The lawsuit, filed in early 2025, sent shockwaves through the media world. If the Associated Press succeeded, it would set a powerful precedent, reaffirming the media's right to hold the government accountable. But if they failed, the consequences could be dire. The court delivers a resounding verdict against Trump, sending shockwaves through the administration. The courtroom was packed, the atmosphere electric. Journalists, lawyers, and members of the public crammed into the gallery, eager to witness this clash between titans. The judge, known for his sharp intellect and unwavering commitment to the law, listened intently as both sides presented their arguments. The Trump administration's lawyers argued that the president had broad discretion to determine who was granted access to the White House. They maintained that the president's actions were not about suppressing free speech, but about ensuring that the public received accurate and unbiased information. The Associated Press's legal team countered that the administration's actions were a clear violation of the First Amendment. They argued that the government had no right to discriminate against journalists based on their perceived bias or political leanings. The tension in the courtroom was palpable as the judge prepared to deliver his verdict. When he finally spoke, his words were measured but unequivocal. The court, he declared, had found in favor of the Associated Press. The Trump administration's actions, he ruled, were unconstitutional and a clear infringement on the freedom of the press. How a landmark case from 1977 casts a long shadow on today's battle for press freedom. The Associated Press's victory resonated far beyond the confines of the courtroom. It was a powerful reminder of the crucial role the press plays in a democracy, and it echoed a landmark case from nearly 50 years earlier. In that case, the Supreme Court ruled that the White House could not arbitrarily deny a press pass to a journalist. The court recognized that the freedom of the press relies on the ability of journalists to access information and report freely, without fear of government reprisal. The case established a crucial precedent, one that the Associated Press's lawyers successfully invoked in their own legal battle. The parallels between the two cases were striking. Both involved attempts by the White House to control the narrative and silence critical voices in the media. Both highlighted the fragility of press freedom and the importance of constant vigilance in defending it. The Associated Press's victory was about reaffirming the principles enshrined in the First Amendment. It was a victory for all journalists and for the public's right to know. The White House scrambles to defend its actions, but the justifications ring hollow. The White House, blindsided by the court's decision, immediately went into damage control mode. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, her face a mask of forced composure, took to the podium for the daily press briefing. The briefing room, usually abuzz with activity, was thick with tension. Leavitt, sticking to the prepared script, reiterated the administration's stance that the president had the right to determine who was granted access to the White House. She accused the Associated Press of biased reporting and insisted that the administration was committed to transparency and accountability. Her words, however, rang hollow. The court had spoken, and its message was clear. The Trump administration had violated the Constitution. Even some of the administration's usual allies in the conservative media expressed discomfort with the White House's actions. The Wall Street Journal published an editorial criticizing the administration's attempts to restrict press access. The editorial board argued that such actions were unwise and counterproductive, and warned that they would ultimately harm the administration's credibility. Trump, fuming from his Mar-a-Lago resort, took to his favorite social media platform to denounce the judge's decision as a witch hunt and a travesty of justice. In a rare display of solidarity, news organizations across the political spectrum rallied behind the Associated Press. Despite the White House's attempts to discredit the Associated Press and downplay the significance of the court's decision, the case sent shockwaves through the media world. News organizations, recognizing the dangerous precedent that a Trump victory would set, rallied behind the Associated Press. In an unprecedented show of solidarity, over 40 news organizations, including some known for their conservative leanings, signed an amicus brief in support of the Associated Press. This diverse coalition, which included outlets like Fox News and Newsmax, put aside their ideological differences to defend a fundamental principle, the freedom of the press. The message was clear: an attack on one news organization was an attack on all. The Trump administration's attempts to control the narrative and silence critical voices posed a threat to the very foundations of American democracy. The outpouring of support for the Associated Press highlighted the vital role the press plays in holding the powerful accountable. The controversy surrounding the AP style book takes center stage, exposing the fault lines in the media landscape. The lawsuit against the Trump administration also brought to light a simmering controversy within the media world itself: the role of the AP style book. The style book, a revered guide for journalists on grammar usage and journalistic standards, became an unexpected flashpoint in the case. The Trump administration, in its attempts to discredit the Associated Press, seized on the style book as evidence of the organization's alleged bias. They pointed to specific entries in the style book, such as those related to race and gender identity, as proof that the Associated Press was pushing a liberal agenda. The controversy over the AP style book exposed a deeper divide in the media landscape, one that mirrored the polarization of American society as a whole. Conservative critics accused the style book of being overly sensitive and politically correct, while liberal defenders argued that it was simply reflecting the evolving language and norms of society. The debate over the style book highlighted the challenges facing journalists in an era of misinformation and hyper-partisanship. This legal showdown could redefine the relationship between the government and the press for generations to come. The legal battle between the Associated Press and the Trump administration was about much more than just access to press briefings or the nuances of journalistic style. It was about the very essence of the relationship between the government and the press in a democracy. The Trump administration's attempts to control the narrative, to silence critical voices, and to undermine public trust in the media represented a grave threat to the foundations of American democracy. A free and independent press is essential to holding the powerful accountable and ensuring that the public is informed. The court's decision in favor of the Associated Press was a crucial victory for press freedom, but the fight was far from over. The Trump administration, despite its legal setback, continued to attack the media, to spread misinformation, and to undermine public trust in democratic institutions. The future of American democracy, and indeed of democracies around the world, depended on the ability of the press to resist these attacks, to hold the powerful accountable, and to provide the public with the information they need to make informed decisions. As the dust settles, one thing is clear: the battle for transparency and accountability is far from over. The courtroom battle may be over, but the war for truth and transparency rages on. The Trump administration's assault on the media, their relentless efforts to manipulate the narrative, has left a lasting scar on American democracy. But amidst the wreckage, a glimmer of hope persists. The Associated Press's victory, a resounding affirmation of the First Amendment, serves as a beacon to journalists everywhere. It reminds us that a free press is not a luxury, but the lifeblood of a healthy democracy. The fight, however, is far from over. The forces of disinformation, fueled by social media algorithms and partisan agendas, continue to sow division and erode trust in established institutions. Journalists face unprecedented challenges, from online harassment to economic precarity to accusations of fake news. Yet despite these obstacles, journalists continue to do the essential work of holding the powerful accountable, of speaking truth to power, of shining a light into the darkest corners of society. Their work, now more than ever, is essential to preserving the very fabric of American democracy. The battle for transparency and accountability is a marathon, not a sprint.